All right, while I'm still working on finishing up this door panel, I'm working on that insert panel right now. I've decided to go ahead and start working on these rear panels. It's a bit more challenging than the front panels in a lot of ways because there's no break in the panel, no upper lower piece to separate. It's all just one stamped molded piece with just a armrest put in there, and that's it. So what I want to do is I want to maintain this area over here because this bucks up against the sides of the back seat, and this creates a closure around the wiring harness down to the threshold over here. So I want to basically keep this lower section because this thing is right now it's about 4 inches higher than the window in the car. So I've got to basically get rid of all of this upper portion and reposition this area here. The belts come through, and so before I go haywire, I've just been in and out of the car kind of looking and seeing what would be the best way to approach this, and I'm still pondering that right now. So I'm going to try and cut it along these tape lines, leave myself a little bit of a flange to attach whatever I do come up with as far as the upper panel is concerned, and we'll go on from there. All right, so I've gone ahead and trimmed out everything that was in the way, and that's just going to form my base. And I'll have to see how I can work around all the items that have to be worked around. I have to put the window back in, get the belts back in, stuff like that. See what kind of problems I'm going to have with that. I have to put also have to put the upper windowsill in, seal I should say, and because there's going to be interplay with that, and yeah, a lot going on in this one little area. All right, so I got the belts back in and the belt loop over here because it's something I have to work around, obviously. And the door panels popped in. Before I took the door panel off of this door, I went ahead and I made this flange up that matches the shape of the backside of that door panel. So when it closes, that everything here will kind of line up with that panel. You won't be able to see it, be behind the seats, but you know, it's just for neatness sake. And anyway, so this is basically the flange that the forward section of the rear, the door card will be put on, and basically it'll have something like that to where it'll grab that flange and work its way out to this rubber molding here and finish that out. It's yet to be determined if I'm going to do this or just run a couple of screws through the face of it. This might be too cumbersome to make that attach like that, but that's my intention right now. We'll see if we can work it out. Okay, the best way to approach something as complex as this, that's interacting in all directions with curves and overlaps, is just start out slow and break it down into small pieces. Start out with paper pattern and basically establish your perimeter and work in from there. That's pretty much what I'm doing. I went ahead and installed the quarter glass and the seals in order to make sure that we build up to the glass. I've got this window whisker here that will fit on the inside against the glass. That'll be my top perimeter eventually. All of the other perimeters are established down here and around and so forth up to here. So anyway, that's where I'm at with this. All right, so that's what that looks like in metal. The transition of this lower half of the panel, and breaking it up into two halves as it transitions down into the threshold over here. Anyway, that's what it's looking like. It looks like a flat piece of metal here, but it's actually the edge is eased over, as you can see right here, so that it softens the corner of that panel so I don't have a sharp metal edge there. All right, the next piece that I developed is this lower overlay panel. Everything's temporarily screwed together with some tech screws. I'll have to basically, this piece is going to be welded together, body worked, and there'll be some blind fasteners, you know, some screws with some studs going through the plastic panel and a fastening from the backside. But anyway, that's probably the easiest part of this. Now I have to develop the seatbelt tower and the inlay panel and the rest of the upper panel. Okay, one of the trickier spots that I have to cover is the beginning of this door panel way up here, because there's a convergence of things. There's a plate that screws on this cover plate that blends out this rubber molding here. Then there's the bolt up here which holds this bar, this reinforcement bar in. And the thing about it is I have to get around this pole here, this vertical post here, and dive back towards the glass over here, because this has to be free of any anything sharp or any sharp edges. So I'm gonna have to come around here like this and come back and then come out and build my tower. So this belt is free to move around the entire perimeter of this loop and head forward and head up on an angle. So I've got to have the minimum of going on right here. So I've baked this this piece up here. This may not be my final piece, we'll see. But anyway, I've temporarily fastened a piece of the window whisker onto the back side so that I can put it right up against the glass, and I know I have the right spacing for the window whisker. And then I've formed it up so that it creates a little tower that goes around here, and it's also spaced off of this bar enough to allow for 3 layers of vinyl. Some vinyl on this post here and vinyl wrapping over the top here, over this top edge. Also have to be careful here that I don't make it so complicated and make the areas so deep that I cannot cover them with the vinyl, that it won't stretch into the cavities. So this is a real tricky area to solve all the way around, but I may end up having to make it in a couple of pieces to achieve it. But right now I'm just dealing with this, covering this forward section at the base of this post and trying to get that solved. Alright, so I've got one more perimeter piece that I have to establish to fill in the blanks, so to speak. This is the one that goes against the window. Alright, so what I've done here is I've made my strip, my starter strip, which is basically a 1 inch by 1 1/4 inch flange, slightly angled down. And you can see that I've attached the felt strip, or the window whisker, just lightly, because these are fold over tabs. I don't want to break them off, so I've just bent them over just enough to hold it up to the back side here. And what I've got going on here is these are temporary brackets, and I have this is a piece of 2-inch Velcro on the back side of this tab on either side here, and this is this piece of Velcro that I'll peel the backing on and stick this directly to the window. And what that'll do is it'll stabilize this piece on the window, and later I can just scrape these 2 pieces of Velcro off the glass after I get this in place. But for now, this will hold it at the angle I want it to be held against the glass, and create a nice stable platform for me to work my sheet metal down on the rest of the top of that inner door panel on the rear. Alright, so you can see how this is working out over here. I've got the window whisker against the glass itself. These tabs, I set them on the table so that the right distance with the Velcro included as far as spacing it off the glass. And this gives me a nice little edge here with this little indention, a little step in the sheet metal to start to work my panel down from the top side here, and it closes out right to the end. Well, the old 2 steps forward, 1 step back. I got all this mocked into place, ready to go. Started working on the upper panel. Then I decided to put this door panel back on, close the door, see how we were. I thought I had everything where it needed to be, but it was an uneven gap, so I had to rework this entire piece here, tie this down a little bit better at this junction, and then remake this back piece, or retrim it, I should say, to get a more exact fit, so that it, well, you don't see it because of the seats, and this huge seats in the way. You never see this door seam once the car is finished. Just on the philosophy of make it as good as if it would be seen. I went back and rebuilt these two pieces here so that they gave a little bit better gap all along here. It was even. Anyway, I'm getting along to probably the most complicated piece here, because the belt has to feed through a notch on the top, and you can see these rails here that the belt basically slides around, and then it comes up to the driver's seat area. At any rate, this is the panel that I'm working on now, and this panel fits on top of this. This is the beginning of the upper half of this section here, and of course, it's the tricky part is I have to work my way around both this piece here. This will get trimmed down a little bit more over here, and then this all has to fit in up over here. Get the belt out a little bit. That didn't take too long, did it? Anyway, the main thing here is this had to be beat out with the power hammer in order to allow this shape to go around these rails here that this rides on, because I don't want this, even though this is going to be wrapped in vinyl over the back so it won't have an exposed sheet metal edge here, it's got to ride on that slick rail that's behind there. So we have to back this, make sure this is backed off enough, make sure it's clearance so that this belt doesn't engage into these sheet metal edges. Like I said, they will be wrapped with vinyl going around the backside, so this edge is not going to be raw like this. But at any rate, this was the trickiest piece to make, because it has to make its way around these rails and then reconcile back to a flat area here. So there's a little bit of a shape going in through here, and then this all had to be shrunk back down to continue the profile back to the back. So now that we have that, also I went ahead and doubled up some vinyl, as you can see in this gap here, and that represents the vinyl that'll wrap around the bottom piece and wrap around the upper piece, and then that gives me the right spacing for that. And so we'll continue with this piece until it's tuned in 100%, and then we'll move on to the next thing. Okay, so I'm developing the little inset panel similar to the inset panel on the front door panel. As you can see what it looks like on the original Hellcat. It's quite a big panel on here, but of course I've had to trim everything down, so I've had to scale this panel down also. I was half tempted to use the piece that I cut out of this door panel, but it's that plastic that I'm not 100% sure that the contact cement will stick to. So since this piece has to be upholstered, I decided to just go ahead and I'll take a chance and make it out of metal. And so as you can see, this panel is going to fit on top of the armrest, and then it has this little flat flange over here, which is something that I added to the other panels because they were kind of unwieldy. This one's small enough that I was just able to just run this through the bead roller and tip it over and shrink this up and flatten it out, and had to do a little wheel work right in here, give this shape. This is just a roll. There's no compound shape right here. As you can see with this panel, it's just a roll, but when you get into this area, it kind of rolls up and away. Anyway, that's what I'm working on now. I've got to fit it up there. I've got to make the rim that goes around and all the fastening points and the whole mess. Alright, it was with the front door panels. I went ahead and made a rim to separate these two pieces, because this will be upholstered differently than the black vinyl on the rest of the upper panel. So I had to create an attachment point with a blind attachment. So what you can see here is I've run some screws, machine screws through, and I believe they're number 632, not 100% sure. Anyway, something I had hanging around. At any rate, now this is spaced out for the wrap of the vinyl here, and whatever fabric we end up using on here will fall into this gap. Right now I just have these nuts on the back side over here to space it out. They'll be removed, and all of the screws themselves have been welded in and then ground off flush with the top of this rim. The rim is just 1/4 of an inch by 1/2 of an inch, and I just used the shrinker to shrink the metal around to contour with this panel. I have a couple of screws here to screw it into the plastic panel on the interior at the base just above the handrest, or the armrest I should say, and that's what I'm going to do next. Alright, so this is what it looks like just screwed into place temporarily. It's time to fill in the blanks in around here at the back and across the top into the starter piece over here. Where you see the screws here, there'll be again studs put in there that'll be blind fasteners, so it could be upholstered over and it could be knotted on the back side. So as for all of these screws and through the face over here, they'll have welded studs so that it can be attached from the back side, and the upholstery won't have any screws going. The only place there'll be screws going through are there'll be 2 black screws going through here to fix this panel. I couldn't work it out with the little sleeve device that I had. Either way, it wanted to shift outwards. I have to have a way of locking it so that it doesn't move away from the window, and there's no other attachment points except this vertical flange here. So at any rate, we've got to fill in the blanks, and that's what I'll be up to next. Once again, sometimes when you look at something, there's so many transitions, it can become overwhelming to try and take it all in. So the best thing to do, at least for me, is to break it down into segments that I can handle with some easy transitions. And then, since this is going to be all body worked and then covered with vinyl anyway, it's not so critical that I have a bunch of pieces. So anyway, I've added this piece here to connect this rim to here. Also, I've added this piece over here, and this is tied in with a couple of screws. Again, these will be blind fasteners, and this was a real tricky piece here to tie into the side of the headliner, and determine how this was all going to work into this angled piece over here, and then what kind of a radius I was going to get. So now I have to take this piece here and connect the dots from here to here, and any kind of faceting I'll get in the transitions, of course, I'll bondo that out and then kind of smooth those transitions out. Anyway, that's where I'm at right now, and I'll just keep moving on. Okay, so that's everything together. What I have to do now is pull it all out and body work it, and go ahead and get everything cleaned up. I still don't know what I'm going to do up in this corner here. I'm studying on it. Got to figure out something that doesn't look horrible up there, that makes the transition. Also takes in a cover for the belt. I'm looking at the belt covers that came out of the Challenger. It's kind of bulky, and I'm going to streamline it a little bit, but still have to work on that a little bit. So anyway, that's what I'm up to next. So I'm going along now with the car, the panels out of the car, and I'm removing all of these tech screws that temporarily held this panel into this other plastic panel, and I'm replacing them with countersink screws, or excuse me, machine screws, 1024s, and I'm countersinking them right there and making them flush. And what I'll do is I'll weld those in and grind them off so that I can upholster over this, and I'll be able to just put a nut on the back side to hold this panel on and get rid of all of these screws that I have attaching it to the face of the plastic. Alright, so I've got the studs all welded up now, and I'll show you what that looks like on the back side. So it comes time to attach it permanently. We've got these studs sticking out from the back side over here. Just put a lock nut on those and then cut these bolts off to length so they don't interfere with anything on the back side there. Anyway, just wanted to show you that. All right, so that's about all I have time for this week. I've got it body worked and let this Bondo set up pretty good over the weekend before I seal it in with some vinyl and put the panel back together and install it and see what kind of issues I have once it's covered. Hopefully none, but that's what it's looking like right now. And I did manage to get the driver's door panel finished as far as I can go. Obviously this is not upholstered, this gray area, but that's where we're at until we choose a fabric for that. And so starting to look more like a car every time I stand back. But anyway, that's going to be it for this week, and I will see you on the next one.